But it's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should we ban the pro-Palestinian demonstrations? Now, that's all of them I'm talking about, not just the one coming up next weekend or the ones. The fighting might be in the Middle East, but the effects are global. Around the world, regular demonstrations have been held to show support for Israel's and Palestine. And back home, thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters gathered in London yesterday, calling for a ceasefire in Gaza for a third successive week. Now, this comes amid a row over protests planned for a week's time, which could disrupt Remembrance Day events. Today, people formed a human chain to show support for Israel hostages held by Hamas. Tensions have been rising every weekend as the marches continue. Eyal Biram, a member of the Kidnapped from Israel group, says that pro-Palestinian demonstrators are not respecting the UK.
They make me to feel unsafe as Jew, as an Israeli citizen, as someone right now who lives in the UK. I see the violence in this protest, and I see that they are not respecting the place that they are, the United Kingdom. And here we are standing, remembering the Remembrance Day, thinking about the United Kingdom, about the people, and working with the United Kingdom government to bring the hostages back home.
So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should we ban the pro-Palestinian demonstrations? I'm joined now by political commentator Suzanne Evans and Matthew Stadlin. With me in the studio, joining me live from the Leeds cultural commentator, Dr. Philip Kiszely. All right, so Philip, I'm going to start with you. What's your thoughts on this?
Hi, Nana. I think that we should ban them. And the reason I think we should ban them is because they are an affront to free speech. They aren't about the ceasefire. They aren't about peace. They're a celebration of aggression. If they were about free speech, if they were about all of the things they purport to be about, then they would allow Israeli advocates to stand there and talk about give the argument for Israel. That's never going to happen. We saw yesterday, I think you've just been talking about it actually, we saw yesterday the guy who was holding up the banner saying Hamas are terrorists. That's just a simple fact. And he was attacked. I think that really shows precisely what these protests are about. But I think there's something else as well. I think they represent a deep-seated bigotry and anti-Semitism in the institutions as well. Because I was just looking today, Dr. Martin White, who's a paediatrician at Newcastle Royal Infirmary, he said, and I'm quoting here, I've written it down, "Ha ha ha, Sieg Heil, ha ha ha, gas the Jews, ha ha ha, just kidding. But have you seen those YouTube videos about the Holler hoax? They're pretty convincing." So I don't think it's just people on the streets. I think they're being egged on, supported and endorsed by the institutions. That's why I think they're an affront to free speech, and that's why I think they're very frightening.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you for that. Suzanne Evans.
I have a huge amount of sympathy with that view, which I think was very eloquently expressed. My default position is absolutely to say no, we shouldn't ban them, because I think the right to protest should be a universal right, in my view, not just an absolute right in a democracy. I believe passionately in free speech. However, it does come with limits, and it seems to me that this has been breached on every single one of the occasions that these marches have been held. I think at the very least there should be a parliamentary debate on this issue. I also think that these marches need to be much more strongly policed. I think we should bring the army in if necessary, because it seems to me that the police are completely outnumbered and overwhelmed here. I just look at what's happening and I'm absolutely appalled by it. And this is the problem, isn't it? We've got this vile expression of hate on our streets. And of course that is going to lead to calls for a ban. But I do think that is a very dangerous ground to go down in principle.
Matthew Stadlin.
No, I'm very clear about this, Nana. I support the right to protest peacefully within the law. I think that the vast majority, and by the vast majority we're talking thousands or tens of thousands of people on these marches, are not breaking the law. They are marching peacefully. However, there are obviously elements on these marches who behave in despicable ways. And that's what our police force is there for. I'm Jewish. A very close Jewish friend of mine was on the march yesterday, and he saw no hate on any banners. However, and this is an important caveat, because just because I believe the marches should be allowed to go ahead doesn't mean I would go on one of them myself. He did not see a single banner calling for the release of the Israeli hostages. And that's just one of various reasons why I myself will not be marching next weekend.
But the point that Suella Braverman was making, that these marches do seem like hate-filled marches. I mean, that's just from my observation. I know you said your friend went on one and it seemed quite peaceful and there was no expression of external hate. But did anybody go on one of those marches with an Israeli flag? I mean, did he talk about that, Matthew?
Well, as I just said, he didn't see any placards calling for the release of Israeli hostages. We saw that very
no Israeli flag.
No, I didn't ask him about that, but we saw that very disturbing clip, didn't we, where someone said Hamas are terrorists, and he seemed to be being abused. That's entirely unacceptable. Hamas are terrorists. They're not just terrorists, they're medieval savages. What they did on October the 7th was absolutely disgusting and depraved. That doesn't mean that the vast majority of people on those marches support Hamas, but I would like to see expressions, far more expressions, against Hamas on those marches.
I think that's
can I just get Philip in on that? Because last week, Philip, we talked about the jihadi GP, didn't we? And he was a leader for one of the Islamic groups, which was really calling for the blood of Jews, actually. And he was happy as to what happened, and that Israel was given a bloody nose by what happened on the 7th of October, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is just a Groundhog Day for us, isn't it? You know, it's protest after protest. We're going through the same dreary thing over and over again. And as I've just said before, it's driven by professionals as much as anything. I mean, I was just looking at some of the images today, and in Charing, I take on board what Matthew's saying, but Charing Cross Station today, there's a swastika there. You know, and what people are trying to do, people are trying to contextualize or conceptualize or theorize these things away. They won't go away. Once you've got swastikas on the streets of Britain and you've got people trying to make excuses for that kind of imagery, then we're finished. And just to come back to Matthew's point, again, I understand what he's saying, but it's not just about seeing particular things. There's a spirit here. There's a spirit abroad, which is incredibly worrying. There's a sensibility, and the sensibility is totalitarianism. It's authoritarian. It's cutting down the opposition. It's sneering. It's horrible. It's cruel. I've been involved in, culture wars for a long time. I get angry about things. I'm not only angry now, I'm frightened. I'm frightened for my friends. I'm frightened for my country. I'm frightened for my family. And I'm frightened for myself. I'm the first to admit it.
Yeah. Okay. Briefly to you, Matthew.
Just quickly, what happens in totalitarian states is they ban peaceful protests, and I will say, the majority of it seemed to be peaceful. I will say again, swastikas, any form of anti-Semitism, should be clamped down on immediately.
Yeah, Suzanne, quickly to you.
Yeah, I think this is the issue, isn't it? Hamas wouldn't think twice about banning anything it didn't like and potentially shooting people on sight as well. They are, as we've all agreed, I think, terrorists. It's a very fine line to draw.
So very briefly, Suzanne Evans, then, should we ban all these pro-Palestinian protests, yes or no?
No, but we need to be a hell of a lot
and Matthew Stadlen, yes or no?
No.
And Dr. Philip Kiszely, yes or no?
Yes.
Ban them. All right, well, thank you so much to Suzanne Evans, Matthew Stadlen, and also Philip Kiszely. Have I said that right, Philip, by the way? How do I say that?
Kiszely.
Kiszely, thank you very much.